At least we remember.
Okay, well, I'm going to do that one more time. Thank you all for being here to Maybe It's Fate for Louisville Laser Talk, our inaugural Laser Talk. Maybe It's Fate is a Louisville-based and member-owned social club. Our mission is to foster the conditions for emergence, the emergence of new connections, ideas, art, and opportunities through spaces designed for anyone who desires to be plugged into the creative pulse of the city. I'm here today with my excellent co-founder of Maybe It's Fate and co-chair of Louisville Laser, Claire Hearn, who is here in the room. And she's joining us somewhere. She's a window somewhere in Laser. Okay. Claire and I are thrilled to bring this programming to our region, and we really hope to inspire a wealth of ideas and networking opportunities for our speakers and for our community. Before we get started, I would like to begin with a brief note about Laser Talks and Leonardo. Leonardo ISAST Laser Talks is a program of international gatherings that bring artists, scientists, humanists, and technologists together for informal presentations, performances, and conversations with the wider public. The mission of Laser is to encourage contribution to the cultural environment of a region by fostering interdisciplinary dialogue and opportunities for community building to over 50 cities in 5 continents worldwide. Leonardo was founded in 1968 in Paris by kinetic artist and astronautical pioneer Frank Malina, who saw the need for a journal to serve as an international channel of communication between artists, with emphasis on the writings of artists who use science and developing technologies in their work. Leonardo today serves as a critical content provider through their print and digital publications, which include scholarly journals, Leonardo Music Journal, and Leonardo Electric Almanac, as well as the Leonardo book series, all published by the MIT Press. And now to introduce tonight's programming. We have chosen aesthetic and feel as the themes for tonight's discussions, and this programming coincides with our current exhibition, Let's Start with Beauty. So for those who are here at Maybe It's Fate, you probably walked through and saw that show. For those who are joining remotely, our show, Let's Start with Beauty, can be found online at www.maybeitsfate.com/exhibits. Our speakers tonight include game designer Frank Lantz, artist Ann Peabody, game designer and serial entrepreneur Charlie Miller, and local artist Matt Weir, whose sculpture Saddle Point is currently on display in our exhibition. For the formatting, I will introduce each speaker before their prepared talk. And the audience will have the opportunity to ask questions after each presentation. And with that, I would like to introduce Frank Lantz. So should we go ahead and pull up?
Sure.
And Frank, listen, I had to do it like this. Okay, give me just a second.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So Frank Lantz is a game designer with a focus on exploring emerging technology to create new kinds of gameplay. He is the founding chair of the NYU Game Center, the co-founder of Area Code Games, the co-founder of Everybody House Games, and the creator of the game Universal Paperclips. He has taught game design for over 20 years at New York University, Parsons School of Design, and the School of Visual Arts, and has created numerous influential talks and writings on the subjects of games. His book, The Beauty of Games, was published by MIT Press in October of 2023. And with that, I'm going to let you take over. So I'm going to mute my microphone. I could get my technical assistant.
You don't have to.
I don't have to mute. Okay, Frank, I think you should just.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be a part of this, and thanks for the invite. I love what you guys are doing. I think Maybe It's Fate is a really cool project, and I'm excited to be able to participate. Yeah, so I wrote this book. If you want to go ahead and move forward one slide. This is the book that I wrote last year, and it's sort of my attempt to have a grand unified theory of what games are and why they're important and interesting and what I find beautiful and meaningful about them. And so I have thought quite a bit about this topic of beauty and meaning. And if you go forward a slide, one of the things I try to do in the book is to counteract the kind of conventional way that people think about these issues of art and beauty. So I want to talk about, in the book, I'm trying to talk about games as an aesthetic form, as an art form, but I want to get away from the word art, because when you use the word art, people often think of paintings, or they think of sculpture, or they think of visual arts, and often the word art carries with it a kind of superlative connotation, like art is something that a creative work can aspire to get to, but only works that have a certain level of quality or expressiveness really achieve this higher realm of being art. Whereas what I want to do when I talk about games typically is get people to understand them as an art form the way that we think of music as an art form, in a more general sense. We think of every song, has this quality of being something that is creative and something that is expressive, and whether it's pop music or classical music, or it's all part of this experience that is different from normal experience, and is something that we turn to for beauty and meaning, but it's not necessarily it doesn't have to be just it doesn't have to aspire to being the kind of refined, elevated type of experience that we're looking for when we enter the white cube of the gallery or the sacred space of the museum. You know what I mean? Like, it could just be part of our ordinary life, like when we put on Spotify and we're listening to music, or we watch a TV show, or whatever else. And so I'm trying to kind of like, and in particular, so I'm trying to get away from that use of the word art. And also, when I talk about the beauty of games, I'm trying to get away from the common association of beauty with just the purely the visual, and get people to think about games as being beautiful and meaningful in ways beyond their appearance, beyond their graphics, beyond the way that they look, and really thinking about all of the aspects of the experience of playing a game as being potentially beautiful. So if we go forward another slide. So I use the word aesthetics specifically to kind of get away from some of these connotations. And if we go forward one more, and in particular, I'm trying to get away from the idea that aesthetics are one particular part of a game along with the other aspects of a game, so that instead of thinking of aesthetics alongside of a game's rule set and alongside of the kind of the problem solving we do and the social interaction that we have, there's also kind of the aesthetics, meaning there's also the graphics or the visual aesthetics. I'm trying to get away from that. In the book, I spend a lot of time trying to say, no. The point is that the formal aspects of the game, the rule system and the mathematical quality of the structure of the game, and the social experience, and the psychology of what you're doing when you're making choices and having this experience, like all of that is an aesthetic experience, and all of that can be beautiful. And so I really, like, as a result, I end up in this kind of like, I don't know, it's a little bit heavy. Like I'm constantly like a bit of a scold, I think, when I talk about these issues. I find myself, when I'm in conversation about these issues of beauty and aesthetics, constantly trying to get people to kind of like see this more abstract and more general way of using the term, and to kind of break the habit of thinking about art and aesthetics and beauty and instantly thinking in terms of the visual and the graphics. And it's exhausting, really, doing this, because I almost feel like, in a weird way, I'm like a cop, policing the use of these terms. And I'm trying to, it's for a good purpose, and I really do genuinely think that this is an important thing to do. But it's a little bit exhausting. And so I thought, as a treat, I would just kind of let that go. And for this particular conversation, I'll just allow myself to talk about the visual beauty of games. And if we go forward another slide, so this, I think what I want to do, and also like, let's move forward one more here. It also kind of just inspired by this building, which is itself, I think, just quite beautiful. I think there's something, there's something nice about this building. There's something beautiful about the environment that it's in, about this neighborhood that you guys are in, that is directly related to this sense of beauty that is a kind of simpler and more intuitive use of the term, which is that it is about things that you look at and see and you have a response to, a kind of physical response to. And so I've been thinking a lot recently about the game Minecraft. And if we go forward one slide, go back and forth between those two slides for 1 second, because there's something kind of like interesting, like there's actually kind of a similarity between these two. I think for some reason I've been looking at a lot of Minecraft videos recently. YouTube, the algorithm just decided to serve me up a bunch of Minecraft stuff. Minecraft is a game that I never really paid that much attention to. My son was just slightly too old to be part of the generation that grew up with Minecraft as like a foundational part of their experience. But in looking at Minecraft now, Minecraft is a really beautiful game. I think it's really beautiful. I think there is something just in this kind of direct, visual, simple way that the word beauty it can reflect. There is something just really beautiful about it. I think it is partly this mix of the geometric with the organic. It's partly that you're looking at this particular kind of generative algorithm. And if we go forward one slide, I think just as a side note, this reminds me a lot of one of my favorite designers, this guy Giovanni Pintori, who in the 50s did all these posters for the typewriter company Olivetti, which I think are just gorgeous. So we see the same kind of like mathematical, geometric, beautiful, visual kind of a style in these gorgeous Pintori posters. But if we go forward again, but there is a sense in which, I don't know, Minecraft is just, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful in the sense of being pretty, of being, appealing, visually nice. And I think part of it is that there's a kind of beauty in Minecraft which is pastoral. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a kind of peacefulness, a kind of agrarian, a kind of atavistic, like throwback. Like this appeals to me, I'm assuming partly because of the way that our brains evolved over tens of thousands of years on the surface of the planet, on the savannah or wherever, as hunter-gatherers, looking at a landscape and thinking about it in terms of wanting to be safe and wanting to explore and wanting to find food and all of those kinds of like deeply ingrained things that have given us a set of criteria for responding to things like this. And I think video games visually often kind of key into this kind of deep bodily response to simulated environments in a way that paintings used to, and maybe painting as a project doesn't so much anymore. But if we go forward again, here's another slide of a lot of Minecraft. They typically, when people get into like modding Minecraft with modifications that increase the visual fidelity, they're really focused on things like lighting and atmosphere and creating these really look at the shader that creates this gorgeous water. Whereas they keep this underlying kind of cubist structure in the landscape, but then they create these beautiful effects with the shading and the lights. And it's just, there's something so appealing about this. It's just calming. And sometimes I'll even just put one of these Minecraft videos on in the background while I'm working and just have it as like an ambient visual element. And I've really gotten to appreciate it. And there's other video games. If we go forward, I just tried to pull some examples from other games of things that kind of allowing myself to talk about this forbidden beauty. You know what I mean? Like after having spent so long thinking about like the complicated kind of intellectual idea of beauty that you can't see because it's in the way that the rule system, creates a certain kind of experience and, responds to the player's actions and blah, blah, blah. Just allowing myself to just enjoy the simple visual beauty of a game like this, Shadow of the Colossus. This brilliant Japanese designer, Fumita Ueda, who was deeply inspired by film. And a lot of video games really are. A lot of beautiful kind of AAA video games, they are inspired by film in a way that as a game designer, I kind of resent. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to operate under the heavy shadow of the colossus of cinema, you know what I mean? Like, toiling away, trying to like achieve the same kind of effects that cinema effects. Like, look, I want to say, look, games are not screen culture. Games are experiential. Games are abstract in their hearts. And even though they might include a screen, like the important things are the things that are happening, behind the screen or in the relationship between the player and the controller and the screen and not. But I have to admit, like Ueda was deeply inspired by film, and a lot of great game designers are. And he was as much thinking about cinematic effects as he was thinking about all this other stuff. He really was thinking about depth of field and how lenses work and how you would and different rendering effects and how you would create the visuals of the game. Let's go forward one more and see what else I put in here. Oh, this is a little game called Tiny Glade, which is a medieval city builder that's not even really a game at all. It's more like a toy, but it's so gorgeous. And it's using these procedural effects to allow people to build castles and houses in this kind of really intuitive way. And the player is just sculpting in a way that's growing these gorgeous houses using, kind of like these cutting edge wave function collapse effects and things like that are really deeply interesting and complex mathematically. But again, the result is keying into a kind of pastoral beauty, which is, I think, again, something that, we used to see more of in painting, and then painting as a project kind of abandoned for more cerebral kind of interests. What else here is next here? Oh yeah, here's Red Dead Redemption, another example of a game that is just visually gorgeous, clearly drawing both from the traditions of Western film and cinema, but also Western landscape painting, and a game that I think is beautiful visually in a way that's really stunning. And what else is, and there's even, I think next, yeah. So this is a game called Mirror's Edge, and this is the Mirror's Edge DLC or downloadable content. It's very abstract, but even this, it's a space, right? This is a space that the player traverses through, and you can see that in the atmospheric effects and in the sky and stuff. And it's still the kind of beauty that you're getting here is very much about imagining yourself in this space, being drawn into the simulated space of the game in a way that's really beautiful. And then if we go forward, one of the things that is contributing to the way I'm thinking about this tension between the visual is I'm a big fan of Marcel Duchamp, and Marcel Duchamp was one of the people who really kind of like was an impetus for this shift in fine art away from what he called the optical. He really wanted art to be a cerebral thing. Like, look, we're solving like serious philosophical problems here about representation and ideas and expression. And so he kind of like was down on this idea of optical painting. Like he wanted painting to be much more this kind of philosophical project. If we go forward one, it's interesting because, of course, Marcel Duchamp, famous for being a chess player, right? He loved chess. He's the one who said, not all artists are chess players, but all chess players are artists. And was so he's always been a big inspiration for me and someone that I've looked up to. And if we go forward one more slide, there's this book I like quite a bit by Graham Kirkpatrick, who talks about this particular issue in regards to video games and how in some ways video games have picked up the torch that fine art and kind of painting in particular has set down. You know what I mean? As painting became more interested in semiotics and in theoretical questions and in representation more abstractly, and it became less. I mean, there was a sense in which painters, and I understand this impulse, right? Painters wanted painting to be like solving other kinds of problems other than pleasing people, other than, being something to look at and have a pleasant reaction to it. It's like, no. We want painting to be something that is, working on problems that are difficult and challenging. And it's very much of a piece with modernism in general, right? That to me, this is all about the project of modernism and aesthetics in relationship to modernism, wanting to be less about decoration, less about being about keying into the kind of like bodily pleasures of having something that looks nice, and more about this kind of cerebral project of wrestling with hard problems. And if we go forward one more. I think I have a slide in here about the next slide. Yeah, about Kant. We jump forward a little bit. I think the interesting thing here about Kant is, the sort of in the origins of thinking about this idea of the simpler, more direct pleasure of the kind of optical pleasure of looking at something and enjoying it. I think, even that is less simple than you might think. Kant, for Kant, who was one of the first people to kind of really, one of the first philosophers to really dig into this question of aesthetics, for him, it was very important that there was this kind of two-part thing happening. On the one hand, when you see something beautiful, on the one hand, it's deeply subjective. It's like very personal. It's happening to you in your body in a way that it's not something you learn or something you memorize or something. It's like, a response, a cerebral or intellectual response to something. It's something that you just feel as an emotional thing immediately. You look at a thing and you get it. You get that it's beautiful. But it's important for Kant that's also, there is an objective element to that, which is that you're responding to something, and part of your response is the knowledge that you're a human and you're responding to it in the way that humans would, and that other people would also respond to it in this way. In other words, it is personal and it's subjective, but there's a sense in which it's also it's shared, right? It's this shared humanity. Like, it's not private. Like, it's personal, but it's not private, right? It's shared. You recognize, okay, I'm seeing this beautiful waterfall or this beautiful sunset, and I'm like moved by it because I'm human and because other people would also be moved by it. So it is both private, it's not private, it's both personal and shared, it's both subjective and objective. And so I think that's really an interesting, that's just an interesting idea about, even in the simpler version is complicated, right? The simple response to something visually beautiful is itself already complicated at its root. And if we go forward, here's a beautiful picture of a rose that I made by putting in a bunch of words into Midjourney and saying, that it give me something beautiful, and it did. And if we go forward, I think there is something. This is the main idea that I have, which is that beauty is complicated. Beauty is always dialogical, and if we go forward even more, it's not just dialogical. There's the sense in which it's adversarial, right? Which I mean is beauty is always a dynamic that is a connection between things, and it's always in motion. It's never simple. It's never static. It's never given. And so, yeah, I mean, there's like, it just occurred to me when I looked at a rose recently that roses are beautiful because bees have eyes. That's the main thing I want to say here. Like the beauty of a rose is in relationship to the bee. Like it evolved because bees and flowers co-evolved, right? So there's always weirdly transactional. It's always weirdly, so that's in a sense the return of game design thinking to that not only is beauty part of games, but like games are always already there as part of beauty to begin with, right? There's already this like kind of game that's being played, this game of evolution and coevolution between things. And that's always present in beauty, even the simple beauty of a thing that you look at and it is visually appealing to you. And I'm going to wrap up now because I know my time is coming to an end. But I want to leave you with one last. So if we do this one last slide, really quick, small game about looking. This is a game that you can only play in a gallery space. Next time you are in a gallery space, like a museum or an art gallery, what I want you to do, it's very hard to do, but I want you to look away from the paintings or the sculptures and look at one of the people that's standing next to you. And I want you to look at the person with the same look that you use for art. And it's very hard to do because I think we're not honest about how we look at art. But I think if you look at, you recognize that if you look at a person with the same gaze that you use for art, you will find a couple things really quickly. You will find one is that the look that we use on art is vicious. It is aggressive. It is like, what have you got for me? Like you're busy and you're going into a gallery. You're like, okay, what's here? Is there something here for me? Is there something interesting? Is there something amazing? Is there something transcendent? Or is this just more of the same? Like, what is here? You're analyzing. You're trying to break it down. What is going on? What did they do? Why? Where is this from? Who did it? What's in it for me? And how does it work? And if you bring that to a person, it's embarrassing. You don't ever want to be caught looking at a person like that. But I think it's important to do it, because I think it makes you realize how active the act of looking is. And I think the second thing you will learn is how extraordinarily beautiful people are, that they are unbelievably, remarkably beautiful in exactly the same way that great paintings are, visually interesting and complicated and full of ideas. So that's it. Thank you.
We need questions.
Yeah, so we have, was my microphone on that whole time? Oh, well.
You're good.
Okay, so we have some time for questions. I don't know, Charlie, if you have one, anyone here in the room want to start us off with any?
I'll start by saying thank you, Frank, A, for your time tonight, but B, thank you for calling our building beautiful. That made my night.
I like it a lot, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a 180-year-old building that we had to throw on an elevator shaft to, and we had no idea how we do it. But that photo is that elevator shaft right in the middle of like the 1970s add-on in the whole 180-year-old building with our brand new 2024 elevator. So
I think the result is kind of a nice little postmodern vibe. You know what I mean? The weird mix of old and new. It works for me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to give a talk a little bit on that subjective piece. So I'm glad that you touched on it. And I knew you were going to say Red Dead Redemption as one of your examples. Have you ever been in like Minecraft or Red Dead Redemption and just watched the sunset?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things, right? If you've ever
really is.
These are like these generative worlds, and they have the timing of the day, their own intervals within the game simulation. They have the timings of the day, and they have sunrises and sunsets. And honestly, forget the narrative. Just go into those games and enjoy a good sunrise or sunset. It's incredible. I don't have a question.
Agreed.
I'll geek out on that. My 8-year-old daughter is downstairs playing some games in our gallery right now, and she's going to be sad she missed out on the Minecraft piece. Yeah. Oh, Ken, what question?
It's not a good question.
Say it loudly.
I can say what I need to say quickly, but
Should we turn to the audience?
yeah, hello.
There we go.
So I am interested in you saying that there's this evolutionary component to beauty. I don't know if I completely buy the argument of beauty being like a game innately. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. I will say this about this idea of beauty being adversarial. When you're making work, like one of the things you're doing, whatever it is, whether it's a painting or a game or whatever, a film, you have this relationship to your audience, which is not simple at all, right? And it's not about giving the audience what they want, right? It's in some way about creating something for the audience that they didn't know that they wanted, that they end up wanting, right? And the audience, when they are looking at your work, whatever it is, they're bringing to it a kind of an impatience. You know what I mean? Like, think about the way you look at a movie. Watch something on Netflix or whatever. It's like there is a sense in which you demand from that film something more than just giving you something you've seen before that you already liked. And it is this, so like there's this sense in which the creator and the audience are always engaged in this little back and forth, in which there is a desire to stay one step ahead of, I need to be able to give you something that you've never seen before, that is genuinely original, that you're going to like, that you didn't know going into it that you wanted, right? Because otherwise it's just kitsch, right? If you're just giving someone a formula, if you're using a well-tried formula that you know always works, and you're just satisfying an urge in a way that is static and not kind of moving forward, that's kitsch, right? And we're not trying to do that. We're always trying to and so we're pushing each other back and forth. I'm giving you something and maybe it's not going to work, but I'm going to try to bring you with me. And as an audience, the audience is like saying, okay, well, I've seen this before. What are you doing that's new? You know what I mean? That's the sense in which, it's dialogical and it's kind of adversarial. So yeah. And then the fact that that's kind of recapitulates in a way the evolution of the rose is maybe just more of a metaphor, because they're both happening at different scales, in different ways. But I do think it's the underlying dynamic is an important one.
I wasn't going to talk about anything but Minecraft, actually. But so my sons watch Minecraft videos of other people playing games. And the thing that I'm really fascinated by this is they have their own physics. So they watch these videos that these game players are building things in Minecraft and kind of creating different reactions through lodestones or whatever. And they're just, so it's really fascinating to me about Minecraft is how it is just this new world that anyone can build and create and destroy and share. And I really have nothing else to say about that. I just find it really fascinating. I guess the beauty of it is because it is so much more than the visual that I find really beautiful. And then the community building as well, I find is really beautiful. But yeah, that the whole physics is fascinating to me. So that's all I want to say.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think of this sometimes in relationship to the invention of linear perspective, right? Yeah. When you think about painting and the way painting evolved in the Renaissance and the invention of the kind of mathematics of perspective, which are related to the same math that renders the world in Minecraft. There's this deep connection between the kind of analytical and the mathematical with the emotional and the expressive and the beautiful in a way that I think is really inspiring.
Why do you think we've evolved to care about aesthetics? Is it reproduction? Is it math? What's your take on it? Or do you know science?
I think I think our interest in aesthetics is a weird way an example of us transcending evolution, right? I don't think evolution cares about aesthetics. I mean, I think the beauty of the rose is a kind of transactional beauty that evolution cares about, in the sense that evolution cares about reproductive fitness. Do you know what I mean? Like, evolution isn't really a thing. It doesn't really care, but like in the sense that evolutionary fitness is related to our preference for a certain kind of landscape, or maybe even our preference for a certain kind of body type, our preference for certain kinds of food that looks certain, those aspects of aesthetics are grounded in the math of evolution. But this other thing that we have, which is about beauty as a concept, which is about beauty that goes beyond that, right? Why should we care about that, right? That I think is like that's the important question to me. Is like what's going on there, like that this thing that we care about because because it means something, because not just because it means a warm bed at night, or that my child will survive or whatever, but it means something else. It means something about the universe, about knowing the universe, about understanding who we are and why we're here, beyond just survival. And I think that is, I don't know, I don't have the answer to that, but I do think it's a way of a higher level that we get to beyond just the survival math that produces our interest in kind of base level aesthetics.
Thank God it's beyond the survival math.
Right? Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I have a brief question.
On the screen
Oh, when I was reading Beauty of Games, I was daunted at first that I would understand concepts because I'm not a gamer in the least. Well, except for Wordle. But as I was reading and understanding, I felt rewarded. And then I wanted to play with those concepts. And I was curious if in the writing of the book, you felt an analogy to designing a game.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's certain principles that this is the first book I've ever written, so I'm no expert on writing books, but I did try to think a lot about. I mean, when you design a game, and Charlie knows this as well, like the one of the main things that the game designer's job is just to put themselves in the player's shoes, to see from the point of view of the player, right? To not just have this top-down look where you're the architect and you're going to design some big space or some big experience, but rather the important thing is to represent the perspective of the player. And I think that probably is true about writing as well. That the most important thing is to think about what from the reader's perspective, what is the experience. Yeah. So those are the things maybe that are most connected.
Frank, are you designing a game on that whiteboard behind you?
Oh yeah, several games. Yeah. I'm always hard at work at some nonsense or other. So I got a couple of games going.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I highly recommend Universal Paperclips. It's a text-based game you can play on your phone. It talks about AI. It's fantastic. And then I'll also recommend your blog, your newsletter, Donkey Space, right? It's fantastic. So if you enjoy listening to Frank, you can follow his thoughts even more through that.